The human race, based off our vision, our brains, our pretty much understanding just our capabilities as individuals, it is very possible that when we look at the fourth dimension, we wouldn't really be able to fully understand it for what it is. Not just because it's far away, but rather we wouldn't really be able to tell where exactly it starts and begins at, considering the fact that it's beyond our, I'm trying to think of the word, like the way we perceive the third dimension, how we exist in the third dimension. We're here in the third dimension, but we kind of can interact with it, we know how it works. But if we were to go to the fourth dimension, technically, much differently, we would evolve differently, but at the same time, though, at least in our current forms, we really wouldn't be able to maintain in the third dimension or the fourth dimension, because we wouldn't be able to see what it really consists of. So, in other words, we wouldn't really have an idea of what the fourth dimension is capable of doing, because we're simply not able to interact with it fully. So, to give you an idea of what the fourth dimension's like, and it sounds very confusing, but it's essentially like, you take like what the third dimension has and just apply it a little bit. Like, you have to add like another, it's like if you've ever seen like those tricks with the illusions and all that, it kind of looks like something's imploding on itself, sort of. It's really the best I can explain it. It's a lot more complex than the third dimension, though, and then the fifth and sixth and seventh and eighth. You get it. The further you go, the more complex it gets. But it's essentially like the third dimension has like base, length, width, and height, and kind of like simple basic measurements. But then when you really start thinking about it, you can essentially say that the fourth dimension would be bigger than the third dimension, and it would be more powerful than the third dimension. Another way of looking at it is time could exist in the fourth dimension, and space as well. How else do you put this? The fourth dimension would essentially be much more powerful than the third dimension, that no human being, essentially you could say that maybe the fourth dimension is like somewhere like farther out there into the universe, farther out there than what you and I know, something that we can only begin to understand when that time comes. But if the fourth dimension exists, where's the first, second, and 0th dimension? Seems like a really strange philosophy. But when you think about that all by itself seems like a paradox. Seems like it's not true because we don't see it, but very well there have been things out there that have always existed that we couldn't explain in such a astounding way. The fourth dimension would be a lot more interesting than the third dimension. Planets could exist, stars could exist, different types of laws could exist, like physics, in other words, and essentially it would get a lot more ridiculous than what we ever could imagine. So, in other words, your best guess is to really take this video as like a learning experience. Like if we saw the fourth dimension, it would be like kind of give you some ideas like what it would be about, but to really see like what it is not what like really in theory, but really like to see like diagrams of it, go on Google and type in like fourth dimension models and take a look at some of the stuff that people have came up with and just kind of get an idea what they all share in common. That's essentially the best way I can put it.